Welcome back again. On the road today, Tommy here from Veterinary Consultant with Precision Microbes, and I'm down in Tipperary, and I'm with a familiar face, Amie Coonan. How are you?
I'm very good, and yourself?
Good. We chatted to you before in your work capacity in Carlow, but we're actually here in your own farm today. But maybe just for people, would you give them a brief background to where we are and who you are?
Perfect,
and walk along the shed and towards your calves.
We're farming here in Tipperary, and we're running a small suckler cow herd, I suppose, spring calving, and then we also rear about 40 Angus Hereford dairy beef calves every year. They're all brought through to finish, and I suppose that's kind of a summary of what we're at.
Those calves are in the background, and Michael get a bit of footage. Beautiful calves. But your own background, I suppose, Amie, you're farming here, but you're steeped in agriculture. You're a qualified nutritionist as well. Just tell us a little bit about your own sort of technical background and how you landed in the nutrition role that you're in. Yeah,
so I suppose I did go to college, done agriculture in UCD, went on then worked, I suppose, around dairy nutrition for a while with Dairy Gold, and then I came on to with ABP now and doing that in a kind of an advisory capacity. So I suppose I'm very fortunate. I see hundreds of farms every year. I probably learn as much from them as they're supposed to learn from me, and I pick up lots of tips and tricks. So like that calf rearing piece, I suppose I'd be trying to offer advice to a lot of people on that, and I suppose I see what's happening on my own farm, what works, and it's nice to be able to give that information out to other farmers then.
I want to go in and have a talk about calves, because I love this, and you highlighted it basically, that I was talking about calves yesterday. I think I know a load about calves, and I was doing it on a whiteboard, and I said it's easy to rear calves on a whiteboard. So you're advising, but you're also rearing some really nice calves. So I want to pick your brain on calf rearing, because there's a lot of people now at the moment rearing calves. Some people doing very well, some people meet challenges. So we'll hop into the calves maybe and kind of go through the basics of what you think are good calf rearing, not just from your expertise, but also you're doing it here as well.
Yeah, perfect.
So Amie, my first introduction to you was we did a talk together. Oh God, maybe 3 or 4 years ago, and I mean I go to lots of talks, and I hear lots of nutritionists going to close that door there, Mike, in case these calves run out and we could be in all sorts of bother. How can you close the door from the inside, Amie?
Oh yeah, we actually can't. Hold on, I'll jump out and close it.
No, here, I'll jump out.
No,
I'll
go
jump
on.
over the thing. I'm still able to jump over stuff.
We're testing his abilities now.
It'd be a good one if I knocked out a ligament, Mike, on camera. Oh, right, where was I? So, Amie, I did a talk with you, and I just thought, right, and really, you were really practical. And what it struck me that day was, you know your stuff, obviously, but you've reared calves yourself. So, okay, we're with a beautiful batch of Angus calves here. So, I'd like to start with feeding calves, or transitioning calves into the farm first of all, and your selection process. What's your top tips around selecting the calves, farm, and introducing them on farm?
I suppose I'm very fortunate. I'm buying off the same 2 farmers for the last, I'd say, 3 or 4 years. And they work with me. I kind of work with them in the sense that I'm now able to give them a list of bulls that I like and that work well. I know they've good carcass weights. They've done well for me in the past, and they'll use them very happily because they're easy calving and short gestation. So that's the one big thing, is the genetic side of things. And then also, like, they're excellent cow types. Both of the men I'm buying off reared beef before, so they know what a good beef animal entails. And then also the setups, like they're both really,
attention to detail.
Yeah, it's just the calf sheds are fantastic. So they all get their colostrum, never have an issue with sickness or reoccurring issues with them. So yeah, I think that's the main facts, is just
so your foundation is in then. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so you're transitioning calves. What about transport distance? Any kind of tips and tricks you've seen from that perspective?
Mine are probably coming a little bit further. I'm going about 1 hour and 15 for them. But look, a good bed in the cattle box, there's no issue. Them calves, actually, a lot of them would be lying down by the time I get home, and they don't know any difference. It's like they're in the shed. So no issue there. I tend to collect them on a Saturday just with work. They've got their morning feed, and then I'll give them their first evening feed.
So there's no electrolytes, just throw them straight from...
I go straight. Now, the only thing is, these are very well-fed calves. These are all actually from the same man. but they're getting, I'd say, 5-6 litres twice a day.
Okay, so they're on a heavy nutrition.
Normally I'd pull them back a little bit and then go again with the milk replacer powder, but with them they're well able for it. They're good strong calves.
Picking your milk replacer, because obviously all dairy to beef systems are going to look at milk replacer. You get to visit hundreds of farms. Everyone will be wondering what milk replacer you're using now. That's for another video. But talk to me about consistency and milk replacer feeding. We'll finish up with the automatic feeder in the end, but talk to me about milk replacer choice, kind of simple things. You can look at the bag. I find it's harder to get, the bags are getting harder to read, but what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I suppose, look, I tend to look at the protein, the fat, the ash, the fibre, and all of those will tell you a little bit about the milk replacer. As you said, it's actually very hard to read a milk replacer. For someone that hasn't looked at them before, you're nearly as well off to get an unbiased opinion from someone who knows how to read them. But yeah, it's just about, and look, if you get on well with a milk replacer 1 year, probably just stick with it, and don't be changing up and swapping. So
people sometimes, and look, milk replacer can be the base of some problems when we see bloat and other things, but I think it's chopping and changing a milk replacer. That's really good advice. Talk about feeding curves for your calves then. So they've got this heavy plane of nutrition to begin with. They're coming in, what age are they coming into the farm at?
They're 2-3 weeks, I'd say, average,
Okay, so what's your kind of milk curve that you're feeding them on? We will talk about the automatic, but just general principles on the feeding curve, and maybe we'll walk in here and talk about you have meal here as well, kind of feeding and transitioning them on to weaning, because I think we're aligned on that probably longer weaning phase maybe, and intakes of meals. So start on your feeding curve and maybe kind of things you see working on farm from that perspective, because you're obviously copying some of the stuff you see.
Exactly. So they're on 6 litres, they're getting 3 litres twice a day, and they're getting 750 grams powder. I'll leave them on that right through. I think that's set up for them to be on that for 56 days, and then it'll gradually start moving back. Still figuring out the feeder, but before the feeder, when I was just using the blue feeders, I would have weaned them for about 2 weeks. So pulled them back from 6 back to maybe 4 on twice a day, then back to once a day, then back to nearly half a litre for a couple of days. So
and you almost said at the end you were feeding water.
Basically, water. It's like even just feeding actually water, hot water for 2 or 3 days. You'd be mad how much it just settles and makes sure they're hydrated and just keeps them ticking on. The meal then, I suppose I'm very specific about getting meal into calves. I think this thing of 1 kilo isn't enough.
No, it's not.
Them feeders, I'm only putting a bucket in at the minute because they're just starting to go at it now, but they'll be full, there'll be 3 of them in the pen, and they'll have ad lib access to it. And when they're weaned, then they'll be left in for a month with ad lib access, and they're up to 3 or 4 kilos a head a day.
3 or 4 kilos. And any particulars on the type of, you've got a pellet
I love
here.
This actually, that's
it's
new.
A small pellet,
it's lovely, they go mad for it.
So it's not your big pellet, I haven't seen that. It's almost like if anyone's ever had chicken feed.
Yeah, it is,
My mother feeds something similar
to chickens. They love that. Now I'll move them off it. Once they're all on it fairly steady, I'll start mixing the bigger pellet, just so that they're on the bigger one before they go out.
Do you look at then, Amie, and this is something I'm always trying to figure out, is when you're looking at concentrate feed, are you looking at your ingredients, your starch levels? What's your targets around that?
I suppose if you're feeding a ration, aim for high molasses, but then also aim for nice things like your flaked maize, your flaked peas, your barley. With those, again, it's just about good ingredients, no fillers is the big thing, that you don't want it full of crap. Exactly. So it's all about the like your cereals, your maize, your barleys.
What kind of protein levels do you aim to get into the calves?
That's an 18 now. So I'd be thinking an 18 right through until they start going outside, and then switch them across to 16 will be fine.
And with starch then, if you're getting up to 3 or 4 kilos, which I think as well, as the dogs trying to get in with the calves, and I say, well, if you think about that starch content, you look at that, because it's quite, some people hear 3 or 4 kilos meal and they go, wow, that's a lot, and I might be aligned to you on that. But do you look at starch and that when you're getting up that high?
I don't really, and I've never had an issue, to be honest, because they're off the milk at that stage. They're eating the meal, and then they've loads of access to straw. And no, never an issue.
Do you add in any forages like hays, silages?
No, I don't. Now the only thing is, they'll go to grass, and they'll be back in the shed as well. So they'll
transition out.
Yeah, like what grass they eat when they're on 3 or 4 kilos for the first while is very, very little.
A lot of people will talk about summer scour in both dairy to beef and dairy to calves, obviously. And one of the things, I think, it's not the full answer, but certainly weaning a stronger calf on a heavier intake of meal, and then maybe allowing that adaptation to grass, having forage in the diet, and maybe strip grazing. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's important to get them eating as much as possible so that the rumen is developed, and then carnage. So that the room
in the background, the dogs are doing their own thing. Yeah, the dogs are under the. Yeah, sorry, Amie. Go on, keep going.
But so getting them eating as much intake as possible on the ration side of things. I think also then when you let them to grass and they're eating, like you obviously aren't going to leave them on 3 and 4 kilos all summer, like you're going to pull them back.
Of course,
but it means that their proportion of the diet changes less basically when they hit grass. So they're eating a smaller proportion of the new product and they're still eating maybe 3/4 of what they're used to in the diet.
Okay.
And then on the strict grazing, I think it's just about, because the calf will nip all the tops of the grass and they'll eat the nice bits. They don't eat a huge amount for the first couple of months even. So if you can strip graze them and get them to eat right down, it's
a great tip.
Yeah.
Any other tips on the shed? I mean, you've adapted this shed. You weren't blown about it saying this is looking like a fancy shed.
No.
But like you can just, it's a lovely airy shed. It's well bedded. It works. So I suppose, would you, and again, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but like every shed is slightly different when you go into them and you visit a lot of sheds.
Yeah, it is. I suppose in terms of cost, I think this is a good idea in the sense that you can finish your cattle in this shed up to Christmas or January,
and then here,
and wash it out, and it's ready to go then for calves. It's dual purpose. With the price of concrete at the minute, you need a dual purpose. But yeah, I suppose it works well. The drainage is good. Your bed stays quite dry. You've no build up. Even for the automatic feeder, you can rinse it down and keep it clean. The bales of straw, I think, are very good there. They keep the draft out of the calves, but it's also lovely for throwing all the straw up on top of, and they pull it down and eat it, and you can keep it topped up.
I mean, these are beautiful calves. I say that to every shed.
Yeah,
No, but you won't be around, obviously, the day when the slurry's been spread, obviously, when your partner
we'll run away that day.
Okay, Amie, I suppose the other thing is we'll walk out and have a look at this feeder here, and we're going to have to jump out now, but no one knows that. You're very active on social media. You're very kind of, I suppose, you have a great passion for agriculture. Yeah. And I was kind of asking you there, people can follow you on TikTok and you have a new YouTube channel. Yeah. What's the YouTube channel called?
Amie Coonan.
Amie Coonan. Keep it simple. Keep it simple. But like you create a lot of content, and it's very obvious that you just don't show off the good. You talk about the good and the bad. I've seen floods and all sorts of things, but it's quite apparent you're very passionate about farming. I suppose why would do you enjoy creating that content, showing off farming? And
I think it's nice. This is nice for me, I think, as anything. I enjoy making it, but it's lovely to look back on, and then you build up, like, you've random people coming up to you saying, oh geez, I've seen your video and such, and it's lovely. And even for young people, like to get young people into farming, even to rear 5 or 6 calves, isn't it lovely that they can see what's going on and see that it's possible? So yeah, I think there's a few elements.
There's a great enjoyment in that process of, I think, I don't farm, but I've been on lots of farms, of taking calves like this, seeing them through to finish, to produce a good product, which is amazing. All right, we're going to talk about your new shiny tie out here, and a little bit about Precision Microbes, and we're going to hop out over the bale, but no one has to see that.
Yeah.
Amie, I think you gave us the machine is just filling up the mix here. You gave us some great tips there. I think the calves always speak volumes for themselves. So this is your new tie. You're going down the route of automated feeding.
Yeah.
So talk to me about automated feeding. We had a good chat beforehand. I gave you my few bits on it, but you're very happy so far, aren't you?
Yeah, I am. I think it's fantastic. It's I suppose when you're working full time, most years we buy the calves actually in a lot later when the cows finish calving, and then we buy them in, but now the two go on together, and it's just hectic, like, so with working. So this is ideal now. I can come up, I can check them. It took a bit longer to get them going, but now that they're on it, they're absolutely flying it, and it's actually lovely. It's almost bringing it back to the suckler side. They can drink 3 times a day, they can drink when they're hungry, and you walk into the shed, there's no giving out.
You talk on, like, again, I like automated feeders. They're not something like, people have put them in and taken them out, but generally when they're running well. But you said something to me, it's saving you 2 hours.
Yeah, it would be, like, because normally I'd spend, say, an hour morning and evening. Again, you'd have them fed, the few bits tidied up and washed up and put away and up and down. So now, like, I come up here and 10 minutes to do what I have to do. I'll check who needs to be fed. If no one needs to be fed, I'll do a walk through the shed, top up the meal, and that's it.
That's a very important process still, isn't it, that walk through the shed?
Yeah, it is definitely. Yeah.
Listening for coughing, that scoury bums, all that sort of stuff. It's incredibly important.
Because they still could be drinking their feed, like. Do you know, at the very early stages. So no.
Before we talk about microbes, any other tips and calves you feel we've missed there, Amie? Anything we haven't covered, or anything you've seen going around? Again, I see, is that a salt block or a phosphorus block?
Yeah, I just noticed actually I never noticed it before. The calves were licking the concrete.
Okay.
And they were nuzzling down and licking. So yeah, it's a phosphorus salt lick. So it's just when they're licking concrete, it's a sign that they're lacking in phosphorus. So, and they are licking it.
Interesting, when you go to France and you look at calf rearing in France, they all have just ordinary salt in blocks in their, not even the fancy salt, not even the pink stuff, the normal salt, because it's one of these things that regulates. So I don't think we missed anything else.
No, I don't think so.
Okay, talk to me about microbes. So I suppose I was delighted because I know that you're very professional at your job, but also when I saw you rearing calves, that you were using microbes. You've been using it now for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Just, I suppose you're putting it into the dispenser now in the feeder as well. What have you seen from a practical point of view with the calves?
I suppose the main thing was that these are coming, as I said, from whole milk, and they're fed very well. So when they came to me then, they'd drink bilio for the first feed, no problem. And then the second feed, one might have a bit of an upset stomach and they won't drink, and you can't force them. The next day someone else wouldn't drink, and it'd go on for a week, and I'd be trying to give them electrolytes, but like I wouldn't be there during the day to give it to them, and it wasn't ideal. So when I started feeding that Precision Microbes, I noticed they all drink.
Yeah.
Like I had to feed them on blue feeders for 2 weeks before we had this up and running, and every one of them drank their feed every single day. There wasn't a day missed for them, and still actually no calf has come off their feed since they've been in a month now. There's no fear.
And again, when you move through the feeder, I suppose I'm going to be, of course, I always say that I'm biased, but you get that transition as well because they actually like the taste of the product. It does help offset some of the challenges, because you are feeding milk replacer. Obviously, we talked about hot water and all the sort of things that make this machine work, but they're nicely compatible. So you have the liquid dispenser there, and I think it's firing in the microbes. So, well, look, I'm delighted that you're seeing the benefit in the calves. The calves are a credit to you, and I think people who know you, who've worked with you, know how passionate you are about your job. And those who want to follow more can go to TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, available on all those channels. Continued success to you, Amie. I think you're a great ambassador for Irish farming. We're actually going to Croke Park on Friday because ABP have Fuels Day, and I think you mentioned a really important point, that young people getting into agriculture, and I think someone like you doing this, seeing it, I think you're a great inspiration for young people, so keep up the good work.
Thanks very much. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Job done.
Ideal.
Happy?
Happy, yeah.